All right. Good evening, everyone. We are here tonight for our regularly scheduled board meeting, June 15th. Going to call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock p.m. Going to establish quorum. We have Carlin Fryer. We have Dallas Pipes. We have Dr. Kristen Kraft, myself, Courtney Darter Bruce, Rich Senna, Sarah Falkenberry, and Garrett Wilson. Tonight, Christy Schmidt is not in attendance. She is with her daughter at college orientation, so she headed up that way so she'd get off the roads before dark tonight. So we'll miss her tonight. We are going to head to closed session just a minute where we will be discussing B, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding matters related to employment, appointments, resignations, terminations, retirements, and reassignments. And letter D, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.076, 551.082, discussion of the deployment or specific occasion for implementation of security personnel or devices or a security audit. So at this time, at 5:02, we will proceed into closed session. All right, welcome back, team. We're reconvening after our closed session. It's 5:34. This is for our regularly scheduled board meeting, and we're reconvening back in open session. We're going to start with Miss Yvette Reyna.
At this time, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Please remain standing for a moment of silence and prayer. Thank you, and please be seated.
Thank you, Mrs. Reyna. Next on the agenda is our commendations that we have decided that we will move to August when our students can join us. Next on the agenda would be visitor comments and testimonials, and since we do not have speakers tonight, we will move to the next agenda item, where we will consider action, if any, regarding items discussed in closed session. I would like to see if there's a motion or discussion, if we have discussion on anything that we talked about in closed session.
Madam President, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things on the personnel report. In reviewing the teacher, nurse, librarian, professional hires, I believe there were 65 of them, and I kind of broke it down of where they're coming from. And 11 are coming from North Side, one's coming from Northeast, one from Alamo Heights, one from Fredericksburg, two from Judson, one's a librarian, and they're doing away with their librarians apparently, two from Comfort, three from Comal, one from New Braunfels, two from Geneva, one from San Antonio ISD, four from charter schools, 12 from the private sector, including some that are going to our P-TECH academies based on industry experience, and out of the area, other parts of Texas or from other states, 24. So I thought that was an interesting breakdown, particularly the significant number coming from neighboring districts that are coming to work here in Boerne.
That's very encouraging to see and hear.
Madam President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the personnel report as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Carlin Fryer. We have a second by Garrett Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, I'd like to request a motion to approve our consent agenda. Thank you. We have a motion by Rich Senna. We have a second by Carlin Fryer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have governance, where we will start with board member reports. We started with Garrett last time. Carlin, you want to take over first?
Want to do the finance? Want to do it? Okay, happy to. So I will report on the Board Finance Committee meeting that met on June the 9th. We discussed the final budget amendment that Mr. Scott will detail later on. We went over some proposed budget options for the 26-27 school year, which again, Mr. Scott will be discussing later on. Talked about at length over substitutes and staff absences and attendance incentives and opportunities there may be to decrease our absences. We discussed a FICA alternative plan that will also be discussed later on and voted on in this meeting, where we could do away with some Social Security contributions and instead create retirement benefits. We discussed the BOA fees or Bernie Outdoor Academy fees and what that might look like from an operating standpoint. And then we had a brief update on our 22 bond that Mr. Romero will be discussing later on as well. So a lot of previews for things that we're going to see later on today.
Thank you, Carlin.
I didn't have a committee, but I did experience, as we all did last week, SLI, and I have to say, I give a huge shout out to your leadership team, Ms. Kraft, and Yvette for putting on our Leadership Academy and what that is. We were honored for the opportunity to present once again. It seems to be a trend, and I hope we continue this trend. But that was fantastic. I think the takeaway there was everyone needs Yvette. So they can't have her. It's just what it is. But also, the Hill Country has done a really fantastic job. I want to congratulate Comfort for having the opportunity to present. It's the first time in a long time that they've had that opportunity. I don't even know if they have had that opportunity before. Dripping Springs presented too, so the Hill Country was very well represented in supporting public ed.
That's
that
great.
Was our human highlighter. Was her term.
Yes. Yeah, I had a great experience there too. It's always fun to go. It was my third SLI. A lot of great takeaways, and it's fun to come back with stories to tell. And it's always a great bonding experience. But it makes me really proud of our team. As you mentioned, I know Dr. Kraft and Ms. Reyna did a great job presenting, and it was fun to be a part of that with our team. It does feel like family, and several times throughout the event, people would recognize us and really just make mention of the program that we have with CLA. So I'm always proud of our district, but it's really fun to be in that environment where there's a lot of great school districts in the state of Texas, but to be able to present, it was a huge honor. So it makes me really proud of our team, and we all discovered that Miss Reyna is super funny, so she could be a public speaker, but did a great job in the presentation. We appreciate that. We always come away with great things to talk about and implement in our district. So it'll be an exciting New Year as we maybe get to take some of those things with us and implement. So.
Yeah, I echo what both Dallas and Courtney have shared. This was my, I think, 13th SLI. And sometimes I go in saying, okay, what new classes am I going to be able to attend that where I learn something? And there's always some, but this year I found it was exceptional. There were a lot of really, really good sessions. I had double booked in some cases, and I would love to have gone to both. But fortunately, we had other members of the team that did that, so we could share notes afterwards. But there was a lot of good stuff that was very relevant to our district, which I felt really good about. And also, our name was mentioned a lot, whether it was at the Comfort presentation or the one on legislative priorities and the one on Port Aransas. I mean, our district kept getting mentioned. So I think we've got a good name in the state, which was very encouraging to hear.
All right. I have a board report for the Program Evaluation Committee. At the meeting, we looked at the end-of-year student success goals and the 2026 preliminary STAR results. For the end-of-the-year student success goals, we had advanced academic goals met. We sustained a 98% participation rate of students enrolled in advanced coursework. And we continued expansion of rigorous academic opportunities while maintaining high levels of student access and engagement. Career and technology educations, our CTE success, we had industry-based certification attainments increased by 25% compared to last year, which I think is phenomenal. More students earned workforce recognized credentials, strengthening college, career, and military readiness outcomes. We had early childhood achievement. We made substantial progress towards the district's early childhood proficiency goal. We ended the year with 82% proficiency in reading and in mathematics across grades K through 2. We continued focus on foundational literacy and numeracy through targeted instructional practice and intervention supports. The overall impact is student success outcomes reflects the district's commitment to academic excellence, college and career readiness, and ensuring all students are prepared for future success. So then we moved on to the 2026 Early Star end of course results. There were a lot of positive trends across the district. Significant gains were observed in both Algebra 1 and Biology, reflecting the effectiveness of instructional supports, targeted intervention, and strong classroom instructions. District and campus teams are currently conducting a deeper analysis of student performance data to identify areas of success and opportunities for continued growth. Final performances determinations from grade 5 science and grade 8 science are still pending. The state has not released those, so we have not had the opportunity to discuss them. A more comprehensive STAR and EOC result report will be provided once all state accountability measures and performance standards have been finalized. And like I said at the beginning, this was just early preliminary results that we were seeing, so there's a lot more data that will be introduced to you guys. And then, like the rest of the board mentioned, we got to attend SLI. It's my second one to attend, but my first one where I actually got to pick my own classes. Last year I had to go to the new board member classes. And it was such a blessing and an enjoyment to see the opportunities of what public education can do across our state of Texas. I thoroughly enjoyed, I was able to attend several different ones about special education, and I was excited because this past year we got to have stipends now for our special education and what other school districts are doing to help that area. So that was one of the areas that was really spoke to my heart. That's all I have.
I don't have any committees, so I'm good.
All right, well, thank you for the reports, team. Y'all did a great job. Next up, we get to consider approval of Board Code of Ethics. This is a document that every year we get to pledge our commitment to. I think this is such a great high calling of us as trustees to be able to make a commitment to our community members, constituents, our staff, and everyone in Bernie ISD that we want to uphold these ethics in our commitment to the board trustees. So I'm going to start off reading, and then like we've done in the past, let's each take our section and read that off. And then we will take action and adopt these if y'all are so moved. Bernie Independent School District Board of Trustees Code of Ethics 2026-2027. As a member of the board, I shall promote the best interest of the district and as a whole, and to that end shall adhere to the following ethical standards.
Equity in attitude. I will be fair, just, and impartial in all my decisions and actions. I will accord others the respect I wish from myself. I will encourage expressions of different opinions and listen with an open mind to others' ideas.
Trustworthiness and stewardship. I will be accountable to the public by representing district policies, programs, priorities, and progress accurately. I'll be responsive to the community by seeking its involvement in district affairs and by communicating its priorities and concerns. I will work to ensure prudent and accountable use of district resources. I will make no personal promises or take private action that may compromise my performance of my responsibilities.
Honor and conduct. I will tell the truth. I will share my views while working for consensus. I will respect the majority decision as the decision of the board. I will base my decisions on fact rather than supposition, opinion, or public favor.
Integrity of character. I will refuse to surrender judgment to any individual or group at the expense of the district as a whole. I will consistently uphold all applicable laws, rules, policies, and governance procedures. I will keep confidential information that is privileged by law or that will needlessly harm the district if disclosed.
Commitment to service. I will focus my attention on fulfilling the board's responsibilities of goal setting, policy making, and evaluation. I will diligently prepare for and attend board meetings. I will avoid personal involvement in activities the board has delegated to the superintendent. I will seek continuing education that will enhance my ability to fulfill my duties effectively.
Student-centered focus. I will continuously guided by what is best for all students of the district.
At this time, I'm requesting a motion to adopt the 2026-2027 Board Code of Ethics as presented.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. I have a motion by Garrett Wilson. I have a second by Sarah Falconberry. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda, we have our consider resolution urging the Texas Department of Transportation to accelerate safety improvements on State Highway 46 between IH-10 and State Highway 16. I would like to open this up for board comments.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. Dr. Kraft had received an email from a resident of Bandera ISD who lives just across the line from Bernie ISD, and he drives his children to school in San Antonio every day and expressed concerns about the safety of that road. And of course, there's been an article in the Bernie Star about it several weeks ago. There have been a number of accidents. I forget the number. I think it's in excess of 500. It's in the resolution over a certain period of time. Some real concerns about the safety. And of course, we've got students that live out that way. Our buses drive on that road every day. It's really something that TxDOT has needed to take a look at for a long time. Presentations were made by TxDOT to both the Bandera County Commissioners as well as the Kendall County Commissioners, and a lot of information was shared. So Dr. Kraft forwarded the email to us, and the gentleman put his name on it. And so I called him, and the reason I called him was, I mean, personally, my daughter drives that every day to go from Bernie to teach in Pipe Creek in Bandera ISD, and I always warn her, drive slowly, be careful, that's a very dangerous road. And so I'm glad to see that there's a focus on this. And Dr. Kraft suggested to Brad, and so when I spoke to this gentleman, Brad Dobson, he was a wealth of information on the topic. He was very passionate about it, very logical, very thorough, and I applaud him for the amount of time he has spent talking directly with TxDOT, with Senator Campbell's office, with Senator Pete Flores' office. Senator Flores is the state senator from Bandera County in that direction. And of course, our senator here is Senator Campbell. He spoke to all the state reps' offices who represent both Kendall County and Bandera County. Was a wealth of knowledge on the number of accidents. And so I said, well, we're willing to, send us a resolution. So he put together a resolution, and I made some edits, and I forwarded it to Dr. Kraft and Courtney. But that's just some of the background information on it. The projection this week, they're going to start putting those little bumpers on 46 west from 10 over to Highway 16 in Pipe Creek. And that'll give you some notification when you're kind of crossing the line. But I believe it's the first quarter of 2028 when they're actually going to do the work on the road. And so the request is if we can move that up from the first quarter of 2028 to earlier, and that's what the resolution is all about. It's encouraging, and the Kendall County included in the packet that you received was also the resolution that the Kendall County Commissioners passed, and that was great. But this is very, very detailed relative to the safety and security of our students. And I'm not sure if the gentleman that just walked in, whether are you Brad? You're not Brad. Okay, so it's not him. Okay, so in any event, that's what the resolution's all about.
Else? Comment? I think it shows our commitment, if we were to approve this, to our students and staff, just making sure that we care about them on the way to and from school. So with that being said, I'm requesting a motion to approve.
Madam President, motion to approve the resolution urging the Texas Department of Transportation to accelerate planned safety improvements on State Highway 46 West.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Garrett Wilson. We have a second by Rich Senna. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion emphatically carries. All right, next up, we get to hear from our superintendent, Dr. Kristen Kraft, under reports.
All right, thank you so much. We have a full agenda tonight, but as you are well aware, all of us woke up to some very early morning emergency text messages about the weather. And so just for the record, we didn't have summer school today because of the excessive rainfall and the flash flooding and all the things happening very early this morning. And so I appreciate all of you being available tonight to hold our meeting. And I know we're making a few adjustments because of other weather that we may be seeing tonight. But I want to give a big shout out to our staff, our executive leadership team. We were on our phones very early, assessing the situation. I want to give a big shout out to Melanie Lee. She was the first one I heard from right after the emergency warning hit all of our phones. And she was monitoring things from the jump. And I just couldn't be more proud of our team for what they did to assess the situation. And then when we saw there was no chance of our buses rolling safely, then we made the call not to have school today. So we'll be monitoring the weather again tonight. Hopefully tomorrow morning will be a regular day. But again, I appreciate the adjustments that we're making to have this meeting tonight. So a few other highlights I'd like to share. As many of you mentioned, we've been at Summer Leadership Institute, and it's such valuable time to learn from colleagues across the state. And so I appreciate all of you making the commitment with your family time and your work obligations to be there so we could all learn together as a team. Also want to highlight Yvette Reyna for winning a national award, a Golden Achievement Award for our Community Leadership Academy. That was announced, I believe, just last week and partnered nicely with when we were presenting at SLI. And last week was a busy week for lots of other leaders in Boerne ISD who attended the TEPSA conference. Larissa and her team were there presenting. Several of our principals were presenting at the state conference. We received numerous awards there. Our STUCO leaders are winning awards for us year after year. And we're really pleased that Stephanie Gomez, assistant principal at Boerne Middle School South, she started her tenure as president of the state organization. So the TEPSA Executive Committee will be making a visit to Boerne ISD in the fall. So every fall they visit the home district of the president. So I'll send you more information when that date rolls around in the fall. And then just to share, we've had a very strong start with summer school. So Curington is our host elementary program site. We have 200 students enrolled there. Programming highlights include our extended school year for students served in special education. We also have bilingual enrichment for rising kinder and first graders, reading enrichment for rising third graders, and we build in connections to fine arts and STEM through reading, and then a STEM camp. And Boerne High School is hosting our middle and high school programs. We have 220 students enrolled there. And some program highlights include math acceleration camps for advanced students. Those have been very popular. We also have acceleration opportunities for students who need additional support in science, social studies, and their EOC testing. EOC prep is going on. This week is EOC testing, so we'll have some testers over at Boerne High School. We are also offering credit recovery, then TSIA2 prep, and another opportunity for testing. So summer activities are in full swing, and I believe one of our busiest sites is our Aquatic Learning Center. So we have swimmers in the pool, our students, and then also opportunities through rentals from sun up to sundown. So it's really exciting putting our Aquatic Learning Center to good use. And today marks our last board meeting of the year, and we have a lot of important information to cover, but I just want to say thank you to the board and to my team for all of the long hours and preparation that goes into making sure our board meetings go smoothly and that we're presenting you with great information, timely data, and giving you the numbers behind our requests. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for the great updates, Dr. Kraft. We appreciate it. We'll move on to partnerships, and I just want to mention, as Dr. Kraft shared, we did wake up to some some changes today. So with that being said, I appreciate the flexibility with our agenda tonight, because we will be moving the BEF Annual Impact Report to our meeting in August. Our new president-elect, Nicole Gallegos, we'll all look forward to hearing from her in our meeting in August. So just wanted to mention that our adjustment was made to that line item in our agenda. Secondly, another adjustment that we'll make is student support services. We've opted to move this to August as well. We will hear from Krista Pomeroy about Student Health Advisory Council annual report information. That's something that we look forward to hearing as well in August. So thank y'all for being able to pivot on that and move to August. Next on the agenda is operations. We'll get to hear from Mr. Guerrero, Mr. Scott. We'll start with Mr. Guerrero on the Bernie ISD Stadium Assessment Report. Dr. Kraft, do you have anything to lead into that? All right, thank you.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Kraft. Today in our discussion of our annual assessment, we're going to be sharing with you what the assessment revealed for the Bernie ISD Stadium. Now, the purpose of this discussion is to really look at the assessment of the current state of our stadium, to highlight recent upgrades, and then to discuss the next steps for the stadium. So just to give you a little history and background on Bernie ISD Stadium, in 1987, Trinity University, their WPA Stadium, was purchased for $1. Now the stadium was about 47 years old at that time, and the district invested $250,000 to relocate that to our location that it sits now. It is on the Bernie High School piece of property. What also happened in 1987 was that home plate of the baseball field was moved to its now current location. The original location was where the wall is that we've talked about before. So with those two improvements in 1987, we also saw that in 2005, bond funds were used to build the end zone seating to be ready for 2007. And then in 2016, bond funds were used to construct the field house. And then in 2023, bond funds were used to install a new football field turf, resurface the track, and install a new visitor side bleachers. Bernie ISD Stadium remains authorized to operate under the original development agreement established for this site. So the stadium assessment. The stadium assessment we do annually, and we have an evaluation. Every year, a structural engineer helps us with this, and it conducts an assessment. Now, the engineer does its annual evaluation, and this year, the site visit was on April 14, 2026. The report was received in May 8th of 2026. The structural engineering firm performs the assessment. Danish & Associates is who we use. The deliverable is an annual report of the findings of the stadium. Bernie ISD then performs any needed repairs or maintenance over the summer. Now, we really focus on the home side bleachers because this is the original. As we saw in the report, the site visit took place on April 14, 2026 to assess and review the current condition of the district stadium. The following was noted. In general, the overall structure appears to be performing as expected. We did not observe any indications of structural deterioration that could lead to failure on a component or the system itself. Previous patching of the underside appears to be sound, and that was part of the deliverable that we got. So we want to take some time to kind of go over some of the highlights of the upgrades that we've done here recently. So we've had some recent investments, and these were able to support some of the things such as in 2023, using Bond 2022 bond funds, we installed a new football field turf. And in 2023, same year, the same project, we resurfaced the track, and then we also replaced the new visitor side bleachers. Now, our next steps for the stadium help us to see how structurally sound and operational it is, and that it's adequate for the next season. But we can see how these major renovation or recent investments in our turf, track, and visitor side bleachers have significantly improved overall facility quality. Now, the next steps is to complete the maintenance and repairs identified by the inspection, and then to submit an annual structural certification to the City of Bernie in accordance with existing requirements, and again to continue the annual inspections to support ongoing operations of the facility. Any questions?
Yes, I've got a few. You mentioned the Bernie ISD Stadium remains authorized to operate under the original development agreement established for the site. What exactly does that mean?
So every time we have permitting to build something, we are under the code that it references at that time. So when we look back at the stadium, at the home side stadium, we have to stay within those codes that were established at that time.
Okay, so if we wanted to make a change to whether it's the press box or railings in the reserve section, because in the non-reserve section, there's railings as you walk up and down, but there's not in the reserve section, and it's fairly steep. So, would that not be in line with the original development agreement at the time?
Actually, it wouldn't. See, because at the time of the installation in 1987, the rules back then, the steepness, things like that, those were acceptable. Today, we may trigger certain things that we would have to now comply with, and depending on what we would have to do, it could trigger multiple things, such as an elevator to the press box, things like that we would have to consider cost on and things like that. So definitely that is going to be some for future discussion as to what we're going to do.
So in other words, if you wanted to put in a very modest cost railings in the reserve section, that might trigger a far more expensive issue to a press box that's already not a very good press box anyway. Could we just confirm that regarding the railings?
We certainly can.
I realize, it doesn't necessarily make sense to put tons of money into a facility that's almost 90 years old. I mean, I get that. And we've had this discussion multiple times over the past 4 or 5 years. But as long as we're in that stadium, we want to maximize the effectiveness of that stadium and the safety of that stadium. It's good that we have the annual inspections because, totally different than what happened at the fairgrounds. But we're glad we do that, and I'm glad to hear that the modifications that were made about 3 years ago have made it even more sound. That's good. Okay, so if you could check into that, and it sounds like no additional needed repairs over the summer are required. Is that correct?
We actually do have a list of very superficial things, some rust on some railing that we just have to grind off and reestablish.
Okay. And do we know what the actual capacity of the stadium is?
Well, we do have a capacity, I believe, of 3,200
on the home side.
On the I'm sorry, that's a total without the end zone seating.
Oh. Okay.
And we'll actually confirm that. We have some other projects that we're working on in regards to
Okay.
capacity.
And I'm assuming, and maybe that's not right. Is there an estimate, or is it discussed anywhere in the report, the expected longevity of the stadium, because it is 86 years old? And I think we got $1 and we spent $250,000 fixing it. And invariably, I think we spent like $300,000 a few years ago to solidify it. So it's been very well used and we've gotten good value for our money. but did they give you any estimate? Do we have 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And I don't know. I mean, there are buildings in Europe that are 500 years old. Any idea of when we might reach a point where,
We asked again, and the structural engineer said that this is on a year-to-year basis, that the longevity of the stadium, depending on the use and the abuse and things like that, would determine that. And but he said this is a sound stadium, and back when they built things to last, they have lasted.
okay.
Gives me peace of mind knowing that the repairs that were made last year have held up from your presentation, that those are still sound. And so that's encouraging. When we're making repairs this summer, what does that do for maybe individuals that are there for club practices that rent the facility out? Are they allowed in the bleachers during times of repair, or how do y'all handle?
Well, depending on the rental or who's using it, things like that, we do have the luxury of having the visitor side bleachers. So we would direct them there while we continue with the repairs. These repairs will not take long. It's not a whole summer project. It's actually very superficial and cosmetic.
Okay, then my next question probably doesn't even matter, but I was wondering, after we make the repairs, is it necessary to have someone come back and double check, make sure everything is sound after the repairs have been made?
So what we do is because the report stated that it is safe the way it is, we wait till the next year, and then they look at their list of items for us to have repaired, and they'll take a look at it. Similar to what they did this year, we did some underneath repairs, and so at that point they looked at it this year and said that those repairs are holding up.
Okay.
Ramiro, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dallas.
Do we have a similar type of, I know we've been doing this for quite some time, the yearly inspection. Do we do any type of inspection on the baseball facility that used to be, the home stands got moved over there? Are we looking at these things on a similar periodic schedule?
So because of the way the baseball stadium is, there is no structural component per se. It's more of again, the boards on the home side that we do inspect, and we do change out the ones that need to be changed out simply because of age. But those, again, we take a look at what our options are, and at this point, we are looking for options on the baseball field as well.
Rich, do you have something to say?
Yeah, one other question. The bathrooms that are used were built, I think, after the 2004 bond, and they're nice bathrooms, but it is a bit of a walk from home stands and visitor stands. And I remember the days, and I'm sure you do, Carlin, Dallas, when we used the old bathrooms, and oof. But we don't use them. But for some of our older people, it's a long walk to go to is there something that could be done on the bathrooms? And if so, is it a costly item? I mean, what would it take to make them operational and usable?
Well, the good thing about looking at this assessment, things like that, what the other thing that we have to make sure of is anything that we have to permit at this time, we would then be susceptible to any type of code that is here today. But we can make maintenance repairs, and those maintenance repairs, if we take that on, we could possibly make those changes, things like that. But we can look at those options and certainly present them to the board to make sure that we're in line with what our direction is.
Well, the good news is that it's structurally sound, and not just for the next year, but it sounds like it's structurally sound for a decent period of time. So the only really follow-up things would be, would the ramps, railings, would that counter, that trigger, that thing you mentioned, and the same thing with the bathrooms?
Okay.
Now, I was curious about that because, I mean, yeah, I remember the old original bathrooms, I guess. Probably had something before that. But we did the field house, the locker rooms. What was that, 2014, something like that?
It was, yes.
But
It was, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, 2014 would have put us, if we had to build it then, we would have had to have a elevator. I think that one was 2012, whenever that law passed. So if we could do that, I don't see, I mean, I want to make sure we're clear if we cannot make any changes to anything on the facility at all, or if it's just the stadium stands themselves, if it's not actually touching it, if that falls into it. Because, yeah, I mean, I think we've made changes after that law or after those requirements were pushed.
Yes, and what we'll do is we'll definitely make sure that we leave no stone unturned when it comes to that, especially as you mentioned, the railing, the steepness, things like that. And then we'll present what type of investment we would be making in those situations. But definitely we're going to look into it. We would then again want to make sure that all parties are part of this assessment, which is an architect, the structural engineer, because most of the times the railings the footings are going to be in the stands themselves. So can we put that many holes and still hold that structural integrity that the stands currently have?
Carlin, did you have something to say? Sorry, Sarah. You're good? All right.
Okay, so I want to clarify something. They said it'll be a year to year depending on the use of it, of the structural. On that, are they realizing that, like, if they come to us next year and say the structure, it's not structurally sound, that we can't magically make another alternative, a stadium appear overnight? So how far out are they able to anticipate? Did they give you any kind of indication that, like, hey, we'll go in there and that we can know that you have 5 to 10 years left, or are we always going to be a year to year? Did they give any indication of how they can tell or how far out they could eventually predict?
We definitely asked, and Danish and Associates, they're very well versed in stadiums. They do probably most of the stadiums around our area. Mm-hmm. They gave us no indication simply because they cannot foretell what type of use, what type of situations that the stands are going to have. But to our knowledge right now, there does not seem to be any type of spalling that is happening, that it's crumbling or things like that. But that is certainly something that we need to take a look at as far as the longevity of this, and to be prepared, simply because the age of it is just it's just something we have to really focus on, and what our solutions are going to be.
I'm glad you brought that up, Sarah, because for planning ahead, I feel like our team does a great job of looking ahead to the future, but it's important that we do press them on that so we can figure out a timeline to move forward with building a new stadium and having that conversation sooner than later to prepare.
Yes.
And so,
yes, definitely.
Yeah, excuse me, I would agree with that. And just because they're doing the stadiums that are local, that they can't be the only ones in the state. It may be time to have a second opinion. Just to try to get some kind of forecasting of what that longevity is.
Okay, definitely.
That goes through the facilities committee, and and then back to the board. So I'm not directing anything, but it seems to me that there may be another alternative.
Yeah, I think these are all good points, and whether it's an issue for 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years, 8 years, whenever the time is right, it would be good for us to look at best demonstrated practices for future stadiums, because Dr. Kraft and I served on an architecture review committee for the state of Texas public schools last summer, and we saw several stadiums, and they were all over the board in terms of cost. Some very reasonable, others were like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And they both looked really nice. So I think, not that it's imminent today, but whenever that time is, I think we ought to be looking at best demonstrated practices for which school districts have put together very good facilities at very reasonable costs. Because that's not something that, the percentage of stadiums that passed in the last round of bonds was the highest ever, but it's usually not a good percentage because people view that as a nice to have, not as a must have. Our concern here would be it's an issue of safety when that time comes.
Right.
And we don't want to mess with that. So, you know, if in 3 or 4 years or whenever we have to pull the trigger, we want to be sure we're ready with best demonstrated practices of how to maximize the value for whatever it is we ask the taxpayer to approve.
And I certainly appreciate that forethought, simply because of operations. That's my lane. I really appreciate the forethought in this, because it is, as Ms. Falconberry said, it is not overnight that we can get something.
And that's exactly why we wanted to bring this presentation to y'all tonight. This is another example of a topic we have in one of our subcommittees. So this is a conversation we had at Bond Oversight Committee, I believe, or it was Facilities Committee, and we felt it was important that you all got to view the report and have this conversation. And so I appreciate the guidance that you're giving. I think it's a great move to, you know, explore what a second opinion would look like. And we do have some area examples of, and even across the state, of school districts that have faced a similar project on their hands. So we appreciate your guidance.
Thank you.
On that note, Dr. Kraft, do you want to lead us into our next item on the agenda?
Sure. Double check my notes real quick. So, you know, we have been on a mission to bring you updates on the bonds as things have been wrapping up. And so really excited to have Ramiro do the bulk of the presenting, but Mr. Scott, as our CFO, he also has some of the dollars to share with you. And so, you know, we've been, you know, visiting with you about, you know, the potential ideas for future CTE programming and how that impacts North. We've been talking about the additions over at South and how that's going to be starting very, very soon. And you approved the contractor in our purchasing report tonight so that we can get moving on the South project. And then we purchased land on the north end of town. So all of these are really strategic and intentional steps you all have been taking as we've been working through 3 different committees. And so now we're at the point at the tail end of the bond. We wanted to bring you the financial aspect of Bond 22. So I'll turn it over to Ramiro.
So the Bond 2022 update for the Board of Trustees, we want to make sure that we understand the purpose for this. It's to be transparent, accountable regarding all of the Bond 2022 funds and the financial status of where we sit. The report's current budget performance, including the expenditures, the commitments, the savings, and the overall project progress is another thing that we're going to present. And then we're also going to inform our stakeholders and the community of the district stewardship of taxpayer investments and the financial outlook for the remaining bond projects. So Proposition 1, it consisted of construction, land acquisitions, and buses, and it sat at $162,640,000. And in Proposition 1, we had new construction, we had priority and maintenance and safety, we had land purchases, network refreshes and wireless network refresh, classroom audio and visual refresh, data center and DR site refresh, and then our voice over IP refresh. Now, the major projects of Bond 2022 helped us to see how we can expand our capacity to support the growth that we're seeing. We also expanded the space to support the CTE programming, and then to reduce the reliance on outside facilities for our aquatic programs that we have. So our Bond 2022 also has supportive projects. Now, these are projects that aren't making the limelight simply because they're a little smaller, but they are just as important. We talked a little bit about the stadium upgrades that we had. We also saw that we renovated our old central office to what is now the Mitchell Learning Center. And we saw the investment that we made in our elementary and our legacy campuses with new libraries. And then we also see the courtyard project pictured here, as well as the other library that we renovated. But there's other projects that supported the Bond 2022. We upgraded some HVAC systems, our safety and security systems. We also upgraded our fire alarm systems. We also upgraded a lot of the PA systems, and then we also helped out our nurses' offices to make sure that we were able to handle any type of situation that could come up. And so we're very proud of these supportive projects as well, simply because it is these projects as a whole that make up Bond 2022. Now, in our transportation department, there was a purchase of 15 buses. Now, in addition to those 15 buses, we also purchased 7 additional buses from Bond 2022 interest earnings. Now, the result to this was that all our primary route buses are air conditioned today. And that's something that we worked very hard to accomplish. And we appreciate our stakeholders for making sure that we were able to do that.
Is that a common thing in districts across the state? Have air-conditioned buses?
So it's something that because of the situation that we find ourselves here in South Texas, it's becoming more and more common, but not all districts have that. And so it's something that Bernie ISD definitely is making sure simply, I mean, when we're starting school in August and then going into September, it's very important for us to make sure that there's no emergency situations of safety within our travels to and from school.
I remember when it was like 105 degrees 3 years ago, I think it was 3 summers ago, and there was an article in the Express News about air-conditioned buses, and this was when we had, I believe, purchased the 15. We hadn't purchased the 7 yet, so we were still 7 away from having all of our buses air-conditioned. And I think the article said North Side was like 55% were air-conditioned, and I found that surprising that but one of our bus drivers was interviewed, and he said having AC in a bus is gold because it's quality of life. I mean, they have to sit through this 2-3 hours a day, and our kids, and it's just, so I'm glad we did it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Romero, on the on those new bus purchases, the safety side of that, they all have the 3-point harness seat belts as well, right?
Yes, yes, that's correct. So this definitely is a highlight of Bond 2022, simply because it is a vital part of a student experience. And then we were able to, with Bond 2022, the land acquisition of 70 acres. Now, this piece of property is located near the Lemon Creek development area, and it provides access to I-10, and it's large enough to accommodate a future elementary school or a middle school or athletic facilities or a future high school. So this is a very, very nice piece of property that we definitely can make sure that we have that as part of our land purchasing. We also purchased and acquired a 31-acre tract just located on North Main Street in the city of Bernie, and it provides access to Main Street and of course Highway 87, and it can accommodate a future elementary or a middle school. Now, the result of these purchases or these acquisitions of land, it helps us to see how we have boosted our anticipated future needs. And again, this is something that gives us a lot of options, because especially when it comes to land, it's something that you just can't buy overnight. It's something that we have to plan for. So we really appreciate those purchases and acquisitions.
You know, Romero, one thought, in all the time that I've been on the board, we've never had a land bank anywhere near this amount. And I know that Christy Schmidt made the point after we closed on the 31 acres that it doesn't mean something's imminent tomorrow. I mean, the land we bought, the close to 20 acres where Van Robb Elementary is, that was purchased in 2004. Didn't open until 2018. But these are strategic locations, and when you look at a map of the district, access to major thoroughfares, it's good that we have this because we now have land in Bergheim at 2 locations, southwest part of the district on the county line, North Main Street. I mean, this is a good land bank.
Yes, absolutely. And then in Proposition 2, which was the technology portion of the bond, we had portable and handheld devices for the student and staff. And that certainly was something that the district needed. And so it's being accomplished as we speak today. And so the bond 2022 status. So we look at the projects themselves, and again, on time and under budget. These are one pagers for each project that our website will soon be able to be accessed, to be able to really look to see what every project consisted of and how the investment helped our students and is helping our students. And so going along with that, a strong stewardship of taxpayer dollars, we start to see how we had strong cost controls through a competitive bidding and planning, bringing bond oversight costs internal within the district, and then being proactive in responses to the market challenges and the cost escalation that everyone saw. And then consistent cost monitoring throughout all phases, and then having strong ties with our partners and our community stakeholders. Our strategic facility planning focus group and our bond oversight committee helped us to see as we went along through the bond and helped us to see and maintain that direction that the district had. And the other points that we want to bring out is how we are strong stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And that is because we can look at specific projects and see, especially with Viola Wilson Elementary School, it was built for $36 million. And we know that we will never see an elementary school at that price again. We're seeing comparable elementary schools in our region are being built for roughly $60 million. And then the additions at Bernie High School and Champion High School increased the capacity of by 768 student seats. And this is in support of our P-TECH programs. So the Bernie High School edition came in at $10.8 million. The Champion edition came in at $18.2 million. Now, if you take those additions and you understand that as we're expanding that, a new high school right now in our region is being built for roughly $300 million. So we see that that is today. It takes roughly about 4 years to build a high school. So once we get into construction, depending on where, that number can certainly skyrocket.
Well, if to add to your point, this came to $29 million to increase our capacity by 768 students. The school, one of the schools you're referring to is Medina Valley's new high school, which I believe is designed for 2,500 students, and that was estimated at $323 million. Now, I don't know if that's what they ended up spending, but that's what they budgeted. So that's a little over 3 times the capacity increase for Medina Valley, and they're growing at very, very fast. But a little more than 3 times the capacity, but 11 times the cost. So, I mean, from an efficient point of view, from an efficiency point of view, this was very good, and it was designed to give new academic options to our students. So we win academically and we win financially. I think that's very good.
Yes, absolutely. So we started to see, and again, we'll make the point again for all of our route buses are air conditioned, and to Mr. Fryer's point, all have the 3-point seat belts on that investment of the $2.3 million. And then every campus was allotted $32,000 for minor construction campus beautification projects. Fabra, as an example, our elementary school there, they use the funds to repaint their campus and their building and the interior of it. And then Champion High School used their funds for carpeting the main offices, which drastically needed that, and then to rebrand the water tower that sits in front of the campus. And then our bond programming management costs were held to under 1%, and that is under 1% of the entire bond program, considerably lower than the standard industry that we see today.
And what is the standard?
Right around 6 to 7%, and then it climbs there if we use some type of bond program system that most people around the state of Texas are starting to use now.
So 1% versus 6% at a minimum is a 5% delta, which on $162 million is over $8 million.
Yes.
Good.
I want to echo Mr. Senna's point about the construction costs of high schools. I haven't really seen the numbers. I know we have Dripping Springs building a new high school, New Braunfels building a new high school. I would love to see what their land acquisition cost was, what the building cost was, and for their student population that they're expecting there, because I feel that we're really kind of telling a better story than what it really even should be, because I think 300,000 or 300 million is actually kind of on the very, very low side, especially what we would need for high school. But yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer. You do that every day, and hopefully we have opportunities to make such easy decisions in the future.
I think it's all about expanding capacity, and that's the story, is that everything that was bolded, strong stewardship of taxpayer dollars in action. I think we can look back at the slide before, and that's the story that we get to tell, is building the elementary school for 36 million. The additions, all of our route buses are air conditioned. Every campus is affected. I mean, this speaks to our district as a whole, that the taxpayer dollars are going in the right place.
To add to your point, this was mentioned, I believe, in the presentation that Yvette and Dr. Kraft made regarding the Citizens Leadership Academy. And I had a trustee from another district ask me, how is it that you were able to build a school for 36 million? Part of it was timing, and we had done the design work prior to as soon as the bond passed, actually, prior to the bond passing, the design work had been done. So we were able to go right out to bid and get a very fast, that gained us at least 6 months. So we got bids out at a time when a lot of other districts weren't doing much. And so people were hungry for work. So that was part of it. But the other thing was design changes. And I remember Ramiro was part of the team. I mean, we had a budget. Here's the budget. It's 36 million and change. And we actually, I think, came in 300,000 under, but we had to make a few design changes. And a lot of these districts build one-story elementary campuses. So the roof is way bigger. The foundation is way bigger. Why? I mean, my elementary school was 3 stories, the basement, the first, and the second, and we didn't have elevators back then. We do today because of the law, of course we do. But, the point is, what, you're laughing, like, I'm an old man? I am an old man. I know, we don't have basements here yet. So, okay, so in any event, I think it was well done.
And I don't want to skip over, when we talk about the bond program management costs, Ramiro, tell us how big your team is.
It is not very big.
Not very big.
Yeah, we did have at one time 4 people, maybe 5 people. But yeah, it was there was no room to take off. So
Well, thank you for your hard work. That saved our district a ton of money.
And I also wanted, earlier I read the report on the program evaluation, and I know at Champion, where we built that addition, a lot of some CTE classes are held there, which industry-based certification attainment, we increased by 25% by, having that space and that opportunity. So I just wanted to pull that back into the success of our children to our bond dollars and our taxpayer dollars and what the impact can make. So thank you. But continue on.
And it really amazes me when you look at the entire story, how you can deal with the growth and still be responsible for the tax dollars. And to me, it's a good story to tell, and I'm glad to have had this opportunity to let you know about it. And in this slide, we start to look at the 31 projects that did come in on time and under budget. And when we say under budget, the savings of a little bit over $7 million. And what did this do for us? Well, as you brought out, we started to see how we added the 768 student seats in support of our P-TECH programs that is going to generate more than 20% of our students earning associate degrees. And that's additional savings to our taxpayers. And then the 22 school buses that we have in our fleet, that we added to our fleet. And then we built a state-of-the-art aquatics learning center featuring a Mirtha competition pool. And again, we added the 101 acres to our land bank for for any type of future growth or options that we will take a look at. And then we did have one project out of the 32 that was late and over budget by $801,000. So, and that was our Aquatics Learning Center. We do know that this is Aquatics Learning Center was, we have a Murtha competition pool system. And this is a system that is engineered to make sure that those swimming in it have it's engineered to where no currents are occurring, and therefore it gives our students the best possible way of being able to learn how to be competitive at the state level, because these are the types of pools that are being used at the state level. And it's a 25-yard by 25-meter competition and instructional pool. It's got 11 lanes going one way at the 25 yards, and then 9 lanes at the 25 meters, which is a longer course, which is getting our students ready for the next level. And then dedicated water polo and instruction areas are also part of this pool. Parking accommodations for approximately 50 visitors, 50 vehicles, and up to 6 school buses. And it is a beautiful sight. So, Aquatics Learning Center, late and over budget, and here's why. So, one of the main reasons was that the market conditions in construction had changed. And these significant unpredictable changes happened both in the inflation of cost and supply chain disruptions that increased construction materials, and also the equipment and the labor costs being for the original project when we had the budget established. And then the second thing that we were able to have, or the challenge that we faced, was the discovery of a karst feature. Now, previously, these unidentified subsurface karst formations require additional geotechnical investigation, engineering, design, and mitigation measures to ensure the safety and long-term stability and enjoyment of this facility. We also want to make sure that that all of the requirements when you come across a karst feature, those are something that we have to make sure that everything that we're following all of the codes and requirements that the different systems require us to do when we find these karst features. And then a contractor transition and remobilization. The replacement and the mobilization of a new contractor resulted in the additional costs and extended schedule impacts necessary to complete the project. And then our community-driven enhancements. The facility improvements and the expanded project scope were incorporated in response to stakeholder feedback and evolving needs of the swim community, increasing the overall project investments that we had. Now, these are the financials and the timeline. I'd like to start with the timeline first, just because it'll lead into our financials. So in May of 2022, Bond 2022 was approved. In the summer of 2023, the bond projects we received ranged anywhere between $8.7 and $10.6 million. In September of 2023, we had a groundbreaking, and in July of 2025, a transition of a contractor had to occur. And then in December of 2025, we had the ribbon cutting. Now, how the financials break down is as follows. The Murtha competition pool was 30% of our budget. It came in a little over $3 million. That was 30% of the project. The earthwork, and that's just off the shelf, buying the pool off the shelf. Then we had to put it somewhere. So we had to do the earthwork and the utilities to this pool, and that came in at 22%. Those were the two top costs for the pool. Then our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing came in at 15% at a little over $1.6 million. And then our procurement and general requirements were at 14% at $1.5 million. And then our concrete elements, which included the pool deck, sidewalks, curbing, things like that came in at 9% at just under $1 million. And then our non-construction fees, which were permits, how we had to bring in the transformers, things like that there really is our engineers and our architects to be able to do that. And then we were required to install a right turn lane simply because we were going to increase the traffic there on that road. And the final anticipated cost is $10.7 million. And again, this is the financials and the timeline for the Aquatics Learning Center. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Wes Scott.
All right, before you now, you see a picture of the Bond 22 project status as of today. You have the first column being the budget that would indicate the budget that we went with when we went out for bid and or any significant changes that would have occurred at that point in time. The second column would be the current anticipated final cost. That's not necessarily what we've spent at this point in time, although that is over 90% of what we spent at that point in time. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute, but there are certain costs that are remaining on any project that doesn't have a closed status beside it. A couple of things that I was looking at, Ramiro had presented a couple of numbers on where we had come in under budget and where we had come in over budget. The one that came in over budget is fairly easy to tie back to a previous slide. The rest of the $7 million that you saw before does not include the Bernie Middle School classroom additions, just the middle school, anything associated with the middle school, whether it was the south renovation, the classroom additions, or the 31-acre tract. Anything that's highlighted in yellow is a remaining project, and we currently show an overall status under budget of $7.6 million.
Wes, remind me again what the middle school south renovation, I know it was budgeted $3.5 million. Do we know the price on that?
Yes, sir. The bids came in last week, and it was awarded to as of tonight, to the lowest bid, which was Waterman Construction for $2.1 million. There'll be additional soft costs on that. Do you remember what the soft cost estimate is off the top of your head, Romero?
It's right around $400,000.
Yeah. So it'll be about a $2.5 million project.
So potential savings of up to
Yes.
$1 million.
There is additional potential savings here. Yes, sir. Okay. Absolutely. So and I'll explain a little bit more about how that $7.6 million number can change as we go along. All right. Here's another picture of how the bonds look right now. We'll just start with the table on the left. As of May 31st, we had just under $24.6 million in cash in the Capital Projects Fund. There's about $250,000 that needs to be paid out for completed projects, primarily in terms of what we call retainage. We have $7 million that is reserved for interest. I'm going to explain a little bit more about why that money is reserved over in on the table on the right. And then we have $9.7 million in project commitments. And so if you refer back to that previous slide, and you look at the $158 million at the bottom of the current anticipated final cost, $9.7 million is project commitments that we have not spent at this point in time. And there is some variability as what those final numbers will come in. Mostly down. Not there's always the possibility those numbers could go up, but unlikely. And then we'll talk about interest earned on the bonds since 2022. When we first issued bonds, we've earned over $10.3 million in interest. Of course.
Can you move the slides, please?
Oh yeah, thank you. I need my clicker back. All right. Nope, I'm going the wrong way. I need my clicker. There we go. Okay, we've earned over $10.3 million in interest. Of course, when you're earning interest on debt that you've issued, there's a limit. You can't earn more interest than you pay on publicly issued debt, and so by IRS rules, we estimate what we may have to pay back in what's called arbitrage, and that's currently at $4.2 million. Out of that $10.3 million, we spent $3.3 million on stuff like the 7 buses that was mentioned earlier in this presentation. We've committed $170,000 to projects that we have not spent money on to date, and that leaves $2.6 million available for other projects.
Wes, question on the arbitrage.
Yes, sir.
I understand the IRS doesn't like it if you earn more money on investing the unspent bond money than you pay out in interest
Yes.
for the bond. They don't like the idea, I guess, of having interest-free loans.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that arbitrage liability could come down as
Absolutely.
we pay more interest?
Yes.
That's a safe number.
Yes, yes, it has a lot to do with, it's got so many variables. A lot has to do with prevailing interest rates as the calculation. We won't have to even consider paying this for a number of years down the road. And it's a new concept for all through the 20 teens that, the interest rates were so low, arbitrage was not even a consideration, but it certainly is since 2022 when interest rates came up. All right. So let's talk about the debt that we've issued on these bonds so far since the voters authorized us to issue debt for $165,640,000. We have issued $164,970,000. That does not equal the amount that the voters authorized us. The difference is premiums on bonds. If you issue a debt in an environment that generates a premium that you use towards your projects, those premiums count against your authorization. You just don't have to pay them back. So that's a good deal. The most significant item in here would be the $45 million in principal that we've paid back in the 4 years since we started issuing debt. We have just under $120 million left in principal outstanding. We've paid $11 million, or a little over $11 million in interest to date, and we're currently scheduled to pay $110.7 million out in interest. That would be the maximum that we do as we continue to manage debt, keeping in mind that all 3 of these issues that we issued as we went along. We didn't issue the maximum amount we could the first day we could. We got an idea of what Romero and his guys were going to try to spend in a year, and we issued debt every year to fulfill those needs. But all 3 of those are variable rate debt interest, and we get to go back out in the market and can use that to acquire a better rate. In fact, this is calculated on what's called the reset rate, which is a much higher rate than we'll ever actually pay in the market. But you do that as a requirement of those bonds.
They're a requirement of the variable bonds.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so for example, in the 2024 bond, which the original principal was almost $55 million.
Yes.
We have $41 million remaining. At the current time, it's scheduled to have $48 million of interest. But to your point, when is that up for restructuring?
The 24s are up in February of 28. Will be remarked.
Okay, so within less than 2 years, we'll be able to restructure that and presumably have some significant savings in our future interest payments.
Yeah. When we restructure, and then every time we get a new remarketing period, like, and I don't remember the specific rates on the 2024, but just so let's just say it's it's 3%. And if you look at the interest schedule on the 24s for 26, 27, and 28, it'll be at 3%, and then it'll jump to 5 because that's the
Right.
reset rate all the way out. But when we remarket that for another 1 to 5 year period, we'll have that lower rate before it jumps again.
Right.
And every time we remarket, it'll continue to go down.
Is there a simple way to explain this? Because it's very easy to look at, and all this is on the website. It's all out there. It's required that we have this transparency on our website.
Yes, sir.
So it's very easy to say we have X amount of dollars of future interest payments, when really, in reality, we will have a significantly lower number. There's a simple way to explain that and communicate that. I think that would be really good, because I know it came up, this spring, that we have all sorts of principal and interest, and inaccurate data was shared, about close to 200 million higher than we actually have. But I think if we could find a simple way to explain this to the average resident, we have an educated community, but not everyone's an expert in finance.
Absolutely. We will work on that.
You know, I think it's about fiscal responsibility, Rich. You know, if you just look at what we issued versus what we've already paid back at 27% in 3 years, right? It's not hard math unless you want to misrepresent it, which people do. So,
Which people do. And I know my daughter and her husband bought their home 2.5 years ago. They didn't get paid off 2.5% of the principal. Well, in 1 year extra, we paid off 27%. So a bit of a difference,
Right.
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're trying to tell that story about how much interest really scheduled to be paid, and if you contrast that we've got 120 million in principal left between those three bonds, and then what's scheduled, which is kind of a worst case scenario, is 111 million, nearly a 1-to-1 based on a worst case scenario. But then you contrast that with what we've done over the last 4 years, which is for every dollar of interest we've paid $4 of principal. Not 1-to-1, it's 4 out of every $5 we paid for principal. That's a astounding number.
And I think another thing to add to that, Garrett, is if you look at what's now the 2020 series, which was the original 2013 bond, our remaining principal and interest, it's about a 3-to-1 ratio. $3 of principal for every dollar of interest, maybe even more, maybe even higher than that. And once the 16 series was restructured in February of this year, we saved, I believe, around $25 million of interest. So if you look at the totality of, and we're going to do it again next year in February of 27 when we restructure the 2017 series, and you compare those two, which were the two biggest bonds in the history of the district, what will actually pay principal versus interest, it's 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio, which backs up what Garrett was saying. So I think we need to find simple ways to explain this to people, because demagogues will always try to breed fear. They'll always try to breed fear, and some people fall for it. And we have to educate our community and give them the facts.
Absolutely.
All right, any other discussion, team?
We actually have one more slide just to wrap it up.
So what are our next steps? Well, we do want to complete the Bernie Middle School South project and its renovation. And then we want to evaluate what lessons we learned throughout Bond 2022. And then we want to prioritize and address the findings from the facilities assessment that's being conducted currently. And then explore what we can do with Bernie Middle School North and what our options are in that case. So those are the things that our next steps are. And now we can open it up to discussion.
Romero, would you go back to the 31 to 32 on time under budget? One more, I think there. I just want to commend you and your staff. There we go, that one. You know, prior to Bond 22 ever going out to the public, obviously there's a long-range facilities planning committee. there's a wish list of items, amounts get out there, but until you actually go and put a bid on paper, you don't know what a project's going to cost. And then 31 of 32 being on time and under budget, we'd never had to really disclose this before because in all of our prior bonds, all of our projects were on time and under budget. And so to have one project in all the bonds that I remember being involved in that was late and over budget, and it was by $800,000 after the scope of that project was significantly expanded beyond what the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee originally talked about, the Mirtha Pool and the decking and all those kinds of additional projects. I think that is a phenomenal success. $7 million under budget allowed us to do a lot of additional projects within the district. Number one, we've never done a aquatics learning center before. I think we've learned that. Contractor issues, karst issues, it's not an excuse, but I don't look at this as a black eye of the school, on the district. I think that this is one of those things that it just happens every once in a while. And so I think tackling it head on, ultimately what we paid was within line with the bids that we received in the beginning, right?
Yes.
And so when the project budget items came in. So I think it's a successful bond. I know there's still some things outstanding, but I think this is a very important slide. Shows a lot of stewardship of the public funds, doing what we can right every time. Occasionally we're going to have a miss, and that's okay.
I was reading recently, Fort Bend, at the same time our bond was approved in 22, dedicated $26 million to an indoor swimming facility. They had to then downsize it to stay within budget. And so that's 2.5 times what we spent. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on construction, but I mean, relative to a lot of other districts, this was on the low end of the cost structure.
I had a quick question about next steps. The facility assessments, those across the district, and what's the timeline for that, and what will y'all do with the findings?
So what we're going to be doing is right now, in fact, today we had our meetings with our principals, basically getting their feedback on their buildings, having the end user actually tell us, this is what's not working, this is what we need to improve. What we do then is we send out the architectural firm to go out and not only look at those, but actually look at other components of the campus. Then we have our civil and site assessed as well as our athletic fields, things like that we'll take a look at. Once we get those at the end of or going into the fall, we'll have all that information, and at that point, we're going to take a look to see and compile that information to make sure that we understand what our needs are within the district. It gives us a target to be able to hit, and then at that point, we would look for options as how to handle those situations.
I wanted to touch on something that I saw on there that I think might get some parents excited. We had Voss on there with the turn lane. I appreciate what y'all did, and I think Sarah was a big part of changing up the way that comes in there. I know that alleviated a lot, but as far as an extra turn lane, do we have any? I know it's probably not going to happen by the time school starts, but are we expecting any information to come down from that as far as, because I know we're not the party that's going to drive that ball, but with the other players that are involved in that, how that might come about.
Well, we definitely are keeping a close eye on the development around there and making sure that we're leveraging what we can in order to be able to provide some relief to the Voss middle school traffic. And in saying that, I believe we just had some news as far as our neighbor there at Voss, to where they were able to successfully get a plat. And so within that plat, we're going to see how we can leverage that to benefit Voss Middle School.
Thank you so much. Unless anyone has any other questions or discussion, we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is action. Thank you, Mr. Guerrero, for your presentation. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, we can't let you go yet. So we will invite Mr. Scott up. He's going to touch on talent tonight. We're going to consider approval of resolution an interlocal agreement to approve retirement asset management services cooperative with Education Service Center Region 10 for services related to establishing a 457B FICA alternative plan. So we look forward to hearing from you, Mr. Scott.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So, the IRS requires us to provide a retirement plan that's comparable to Social Security for every employee we have. Predominantly, most of our employees qualify under the Teachers Retirement System Plan, TRS. But for certain employees, like substitutes, temporaries, and part-time employees, we have to contribute to FICA because they do not qualify for TRS.
Mr. Scott, please
Yeah.
click your slides so we
Yeah.
can keep up with you.
Oh, man, I am the worst clicker in the world. Okay, I'll need to take my budget initiative into consideration. Okay, so once again, all of our employees have to have a retirement plan that is comparable to the Social Security as determined by the IRS. Almost all of our employees are under TRS, which does qualify. Certain employees, like substitutes, temporaries, and part-time employees, must participate in Social Security or an alternative retirement plan. We have found out that we are one of the few districts that do not have a FICA alternative plan. A 457B plan allows for deductions to be taken from an employee's pay in lieu of Social Security taxes and are contributed directly to a defined contribution retirement plan. All right. So instead of contributing 6.2% to Social Security on behalf of the employee by the district, the employee will contribute 7.5% into their retirement account instead of the employee contributing into Social Security. Those employees are immediately vested in their funds and can be rolled over or transferred to another qualifying plan, so they have more access to this plan. They can withdraw this as cash as well, but with penalties. So the benefits to the employee are significant. They have better access. They're going to get the same or better funds than they would if they had access to Social Security at all. Most employees, most of the Bernie ISD employees that contribute to Social Security do not contribute enough to qualify for their quarters. And they will have immediate access to this. They're immediately vested. And it would be a budgetary savings for the district. So I will take any questions or concerns at this time.
Just so we have you on the record, can you share what the budgetary savings would be for the district? I know it was on the slide.
It's on the slide. It's estimated at $120,000.
Thank you.
And let's remember that number when we take a look at the compensation plan shortly.
$60 in 1 year, which is what you were referencing, that it's mostly substitute teachers that wouldn't earn that amount. So am I understanding this right, that basically right now they're paying that 6.2% after tax and getting no benefit? It doesn't go towards qualified Social Security payments that they would get the benefit of after they turn, 62 or whatever it is.
Everything that you said is correct, except currently the district pays 6.2, the employee pays 7.5.
Okay, so they're not getting a benefit. We're paying collectively 13-14%, and nobody's getting any benefit.
Correct.
Yeah. This is a great. I'm glad you guys found this.
Sounds
All
like a
credit to
no-brainer.
Ms. Prone.
This is a great deal.
It sounds like it's a great incentive for our staff.
Yes. Agreed.
And Ms. Rhodes Prune will be doing training and information sessions with employees that this would be impacting once they come back from the summer.
I know as a team, we've been looking at ways to incentivize our staff, and this is another great example of digging deep and looking at ways to not only impact our staff for good, but to save the district money. It sounds like it's a win-win for all parties.
Agreed. Madam President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the resolution and interlocal agreement with Region 10 RAMS FICA Alternative Plan as presented by the administration.
All right, we have a motion by Carlin Fryer. We have a second by Rich Tenna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Mr. Scott.
Sure thing.
We will move on to business, again with Mr. Scott, where we will discuss monthly financial report and board action on financial matters directly related to those reports, including budget amendments, investments, donations, and tax collection reports.
Yes, you've been provided the financial reports for the period ended May 31, 2026. The budgetary comparison report is within operational and budgeted expectations. Two things to note out of that report. The debt service fund and child nutrition fund have surpluses of through May of 600,000 and 200,000 respectively. And I anticipate that those will carry forward in at least those amounts through the end of the fiscal year. One of the primary items in this month's report is the budget amendment. We have budget amendments in all three of our funds that the board is required to adopt and monitor for amendments and approve or consider for approval. Excuse me. The adjustments to general fund revenues are to account for higher than average collections on the tax levy, anticipated additional interest income, additional on behalf contributions for the state, and a one-time settlement of about 400,000 from Health and Human Services for the 2022 SHARS report. By the way, all of those adjustments to revenue are one-time adjustments. They will not carry forward into the 26-27 budget. On the expense side, we have functional expenses that we need to adjust to ensure that the district remains within budgetary authority. They're all one-time adjustments. They all have tie back to conversations that we've had for most of the year related to some budget drivers related to special ed contracted services, related to transportation costs, and the one item that is not a one-time cost is the appraisal district cost. That we have an adjustment for appraisal districts, which function 99, keeping in mind that the appraisal districts passed their budget in September, so we're aware of exactly what those costs are subsequent to the adoption of the budget, and so we're making an adjustment for that this year. I am not carrying it forward as part of base cost. You'll see it as part of the budget initiatives when we get to the adopted budget. We have adjustments to the debt service fund. There are adjustments to the revenue that are reflective of higher than average collections on the tax levy, and reflect we have amounts from the 2025 transaction that we did in December for the 2016 refunding. Those refunding numbers can look kind of odd and big. You know, there's $52 million in, $52 million out, and the net effect of that transaction is zero. The overall budget amendment to the debt service fund is an increase to a surplus from a balanced budget, but that is because of the tax collections and interest income in that fund. The refunding entry itself is nets to zero. We also have an adjustment to the child nutrition fund for $200,000. That's reflective of higher than anticipated meal sales, and that will carry forward to the 26-27 budget. By the way, we need to get a little Bernie ISD sign that says over 1 million meals served, because that's what happened this year. We crossed the million meal mark for the first time.
That can go on our marquees.
Yes. Yes, you also have the donation report. We received more than 44,000 donations in the month of May from a number of organizations, highlighted by the contribution to Champion High School to refinish the dance floor by the Charms Booster Club. We appreciate every single dollar and hour and good and services that are consistently donated to our students by the community. And last but not least, the tax collection report, which represents over 97% of the tax levy has been collected through May, and that's certainly within expectations. And if you have any questions or concerns about the monthly financial reports, I'd be happy to entertain those at this time.
Anyone? All right, well, I'm requesting a motion.
Let me turn on. There it is. I move to approve the budget amendments, donation report, and tax collection report as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Garrett Wilson, a second by Carlin Fryer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda for business is federal grant application public hearing. Yes.
All right. We're required by federal law to hold a public hearing related to our federal grants. The district utilizes federal formula grants to address certain needs that are primarily from our title funds, which do things like address supplemental education needs and funding from the individuals with disabilities education grant or the IDEA funds. Just as a side note, the district gets between $4 and $5 million in federal funds every year. The bulk of the difference would be coming from our child nutrition and the free and reduced lunch program act. But that is not a grant it's not a grant, and excuse me, and we don't have to include it in this presentation. So I will turn this back over to you, Madam President, for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. It is now 7:14 p.m. At this time, we'll open the federal grant applications public hearing and take comments from the audience. Does anyone have any comments regarding federal grant applications? All right. It is now 7:14 and 45 seconds. At this time, we will close the public hearing. All right. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda for business, we will hear from you, Mr. Scott, again about the budget hearing.
All right. So we've had a number of 5 workshops up to this point in time. I just want to refresh you really quickly on the significant budget assumptions that we have for 26-27, which is based on enrollment of 11,179, which is the number of students that we had enrolled as of the end of October, or snapshot. The ADA that we yielded this year was at 10,530. We're carrying that forward as an expectation for next year. That is a 95.5% attendance rate. The property values that we're basing the general and the debt service fund are based on market values of just under $22 billion, which is a 4% increase from last year. Taxable values of just under $14 billion, which is an 8% increase from last year, and which generates a levy for the general fund. We'll look at the levy related to the debt service fund later of $79.9 million, which is a $2.8 million increase from last year. That's based on a tax rate. The M&O levy is based on a tax rate of 67.55 cents, which is a 2.14 cent decrease from last year. Keeping in mind that these are based on preliminary numbers that we've placed assumptions on what those preliminary numbers are going to come down to as we go through the appeal process or the protest process, excuse me, with the appraisal district. Last year, we predicted that it would be a 3-cent decrease in the maximum compressed rate from the state, but the number of protests came in significantly higher than we anticipated, and there was not a decrease. that was an anomaly. So, so I'm going to stick with what we have here and see what happens this year. The updated numbers that I've been getting from Bear County and from Kendall County have been consistent with my expectations of a 1% decrease from the preliminary values that we received, and then that the INS rate would remain consistent from the prior year.
So Mr. Scott on that?
Yes, sir.
So as the projection is today, it's a 2.14 decrease,
Yes.
right? Which would offset the 2-cent increase from the Vader that we approved, or that was approved by the community in November.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
We're getting that 2 cents right back.
Getting it right back.
Awesome. A little better. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. And also for ADA, the attendance rate, can you give us the average, what the ADA was this past school year?
It was 95.5%.
Okay.
That is exactly what we did.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Scott, can you just clarify? So last November, we went out for our voter-approved tax rate election
Yes, ma'am.
for 2 cents. And if we are looking at a tax rate of a decline of 2 cents, do we still retain our golden pennies?
We absolutely retain our golden pennies. That includes the golden penny.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, the M&O rate is composed of the maximum compressed rate that's provided by the Texas Education Agency, and then our tier 2 golden and copper pennies. We have no copper pennies. We have 8 golden pennies. So just for clarity, this assumes a maximum compressed rate of a little over 59 cents from TEA.
And I'm here just to beat a dead horse, but also I want to make sure that we're also taking into the fact that the homestead exemption took into effect right around October, December of last year. So this is going to be their first kind of cycle seeing that full.
No, sir.
That would have been last year. They saw that last year. Okay.
They got
the homestead hit. So
year.
yeah, but I'm just adding the homestead that wasn't us. That was the state, and we appreciate that.
Yes.
Then with the Vader, we're sitting in a much better place, I believe, this year as taxpayers in our district than we were last year, and I appreciate that.
Yes. As a reminder, we won't adopt a tax rate until August or September, but I'll be sure to bring forward an analysis that shows pre-Vader, pre-homestead, what the average taxpayer would have been paying, so that to show the benefit to the public.
And I actually think would be interesting to see when we adopt the tax rate in September, if you go back to 2018 or 19, before there was major increases in the homestead exemption, there have been massive increases in appraised value. So taxable, the market value of homes have skyrocketed. And on a school basis, between the tax rate compression, lowering the tax rate from $1.35 down to maybe below 99 cents, increase in the homestead exemption, the average homeowner is paying about what they did 7 years ago. Seniors are paying less because their homestead exemption is higher. That's unique to school districts. So property tax relief is a big issue across the state of Texas, but the biggest change in terms of relief is on the school side. And that's intentional on the efforts of the state. We're well aware of that in our district because we hear about it from our constituents, and that's one reason why that's been an important part of our legislative priorities. How much the state will be able to continue to do in coming years, time will tell.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Sure thing.
All right. It is now. Nope. Sorry.
He's not done.
I'm so sorry.
Y'all can.
It gets better.
vote to
Keep
open
talking.
Public hearing at any point in time.
Keep talking.
But on those basic assumptions, here is the proposed budget for the general fund, or some aspects of that. First, we'll talk about the revenues related to the general fund. You'll see a comparison to what I like to use as the amended budget, which would be pre the budget that, a budget amendment that we did today. That would have been the budget amendment that you adopted at the May meeting. And so any adjustments, any one-time adjustments are not considered when you look at this comparison. And so you see an increase in the property taxes. One thing to keep in mind when we talk about the increase in property taxes is it's more than just an increase in values. More than half of that was new properties added. There was $500 million in market value in new properties added, according to preliminary reports. There's a slight increase in other local revenues. That's where interest income, facility rentals, game revenues reside. There is a decrease in the state entitlement. That's always a function, an offset in the state funding formula that goes along with an increase in property values. Our on behalf is going to remain the same at that time. That's representative of the contribution made by the state to our employees to the teacher retirement system, and has an equal offset in our expenditures. And then a slight decrease, in the federal funds. The federal funds in the general fund are mostly comprised of the indirect costs, which are administrative fees that the general fund effectively charges to other funds. Excuse me.
I have a question here.
Yes.
On the golden pennies that we adopted with the Vader, I know there's a state portion of that. That's where would that be shown up in here?
That's in the 31.5 million. Thank you so much, Melanie. And remember that those 3 pennies that we adopted with the property tax aspect of that and the state aid aspect of that was in the $4.8 to $5 million range, right? And so we're still getting that same amount of money. And what will happen since House Bill 2 froze the yield that you get from your golden pennies at a point in time, we'll get that same $5 million every year. What will happen though, and what happened this year, and I can't remember the specific numbers, forgive me, but those those 3 pennies yielded per penny a little bit more. So we got a little bit less of that Tier 2 state funding. At a point in time, that Tier 2 state funding will go to 0 because those 3 pennies will now be worth $5 million.
Okay.
When it becomes $5.1 million, we'll get 5.1. When it becomes 5.2, we'll get 5.2. And I'll go up from there.
Wes, quick question on the state aid. This year was different in when we started receiving the funds from the state, which certainly benefited us from an interest standpoint.
Yes.
Do we have any idea what that'll look like in the next fiscal year?
I anticipate much the same.
Okay, good.
Much the same. Thank you. All right. So, $120.9 million in general fund revenues. That water helped for almost a half a second. Sorry. All right. When we adopt the budget on the expenditure side in the general fund, there's always 4 things that compose those expenditures, right? We're going to have our base expenditures, which is going to be the base expenditures that you had from your general fund budget as of May of 2026. Then we're going to consider any additional staff that we need for growth needs. We're going to consider any budget initiatives related to programs. And then we're going to consider compensation. Compensation is always one of the primary things we do. And here's a presentation on what we're proposing for compensation for the 26-27 budget. The amounts for auxiliary, paraprofessional, and professional employees is representative of a 2% raise for all of those positions. The $1.9 million for teachers, nurses, librarians, and instructional coaches is representative of a 2% increase for all of those positions from the 1 to 4 year level of experience, and then from 5 to 40 years of experience, there is a range of raises that average about 3.4%. All of those steps are are around the 3.4% range. That is intentional, as Dr. Kraft talked about during the fall with our staff. How do we address the big compensation elephant one bite at a time? And here's another bite that we're proposing that be taken that emphasizes compensation for experienced teachers. All right, so here's a little bit better picture of the general fund budget. We have $120.9 million in budgeted revenues that we saw on 2 slides previous. We've got $119 million in base expenditures carrying forward from the 25-26 budget. We've got $320,000 for additional positions, which is 4 FTEs. There's actually 5 teachers that are going to go to take care of the additional cohort at the P-TECH Health Sciences Academy at Bernie High School, and then 1 position that we're taking from an elementary school related to projections in what those numbers will be at those schools. And we have 1.3 million in budget initiatives and the 2.6 million in compensation that we presented on the slide before. That is results in a budgeted deficit that's just under $2.4 million. It's been a common practice for Bernie ISD to budget up to about 2% of our budgeted revenues, and our budgeted revenues are at 2.4 million. 2% of our budgeted revenues, excuse me, is $2.4 million. So we're within that practiced range. Keeping in mind that we budgeted a very small surplus to less than $50,000 for the general fund as of May of 26, and we anticipate having a surplus of about $2.5 million in that fund. So I'll talk a little bit more about the history of adopting a deficit budget. It is considered good practice. We have the practice of underestimating revenues and overestimating expenditures, and I'll probably repeat that a couple of more times so that we keep that in mind, and want to provide the board a history reminder of what we've done over the last 4 years and what the results have been. In that we've adopted small deficits in 24-25. It wasn't so small a deficit, right? We felt we had to do what was necessary at the time, even though it was a little bit more of a risk, and it worked out well. And why does this happen? How do we get from starting from a budgeted deficit and end up with a surplus? There's several things that I want you to keep in mind. Number one, we don't rely on the market. We budget very little for interest income. We don't want to rely on interest income to pay for recurring costs. There are aspects since 2019 of the state funding formula that become more and more volatile, especially when we hit 2023. When you look at what happened, especially in the 24-25 year, we know this happened every year, but the hold harmless for frozen values, that we don't find out about what we're going to get one way or the other from that hold harmless until an indicator of that 6 months into our fiscal year after, and that would be 8 months after we adopt the budget, right? That number has been all over the place. Yay, we're going to get some money. In 25-26, we thought we actually figured out how to predict that, and then it all got taken away, and then we get in a big fight and get it with the state and get it all back, and that's great. But it is a volatile mess. So you be conservative with what you budget. And once again, we underestimate our revenues and overestimate our expenditures. Another aspect of why we're conservative when we budget is that our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. When you're a June 30 year end, you have to adopt your budget prior to knowing what the certified values are, and I gave an example of that a little bit before. You have no idea, well, you have a good idea of how many students will walk in the door, but you don't know, and that would be the difference between a June 30 year end and an August 31 year end, which most school districts are. that have already started school and know what initial enrollment is. And they also know what their property values are. All right, we also need to adopt a debt service fund and a child nutrition fund, so we'll talk about the debt service fund for a second. Here is a picture of the principal and interest that will be paid by each bond issue in the 26-27 year. I would point you to the 2016 building fund where we have zero principal scheduled to be paid. And the reason that we have zero principal, if you look down to the second to the bottom line, the 2025 refunding, we have $17 million that we're going to pay in principal that year. That is all 2016 and a small amount of 2014 bond money that we did in the December 25 transaction. Okay.
And that's where, in restructuring the 16 series into what's now the 25 series, that's where we saved millions of dollars. I believe it's close to $25 million over the lifetime of the note. So when you take a look at what we pay out in principal versus interest, it's a good ratio.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That just under $40.5 million in principal and interest will carry forward to the proposed budget. That's the only thing you pay out of the debt service fund is principal interest and a small amount of paying agent fees. And the $37 million that will be generated by the property taxes plus the state OSSI funding will yield the $40.5 million that we'll need to pay the principal and interest. Because of the restructuring approach that we've taken, you'll note that state funding is really the primary source of the increase in revenue this year. Last year, we only got about $1.5 million in the additional state aid for homestead exemption monies that came from the state. Because we were focused on defeasance, which was the best answer for the district that last year. But if we can take advantage of that, and by restructuring, it's a scheduled debt payment, so we can take advantage of that funding, it jumped up to $3.5 million. All right.
What I like about that is that 68% of the item in that budget is principal. That's good.
All right. The third fund that you have to adopt by law is the Child Nutrition Fund. As we talked about when we were talking about the May financials, the Child Nutrition Fund is $4.5 million. We pushed that up from 4.3 to 4.5 based on the participation that we saw last year, which is over 1 million breakfast and lunches served in the course of the 25-26 year. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President.
All right.
Mr. Scott, before you do that, or
Yes, sir.
Madam President, can you go back to the budget adoption versus where we ended up?
Yeah, I can. I'm getting so good with this clicker now. I'm gonna
Nope, go forward. Actually, go forward one more, if you don't mind.
forward or
That one right there. Yep.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned it here on item number 2. Aspects of state funding formula have become increasingly volatile. Mr. Senate, I didn't tee you up for this ahead of time, but on June 1st, which is when we had our last budget workshop, that morning you had gone to Austin and testified, and I think it's worth talking about your testimony that you did, and I think equally important to talk about the environment in the room from the legislators over the legislative budget board runs that are becoming increasingly inaccurate and making budgeting more difficult for school districts.
Well, I was honored to be invited to testify. I was the only school board trustee in the state of Texas to do that, and I didn't speak it from a Bernie-centric point of view, but I did indicate that I gave him a copy of our legislative priorities, which included continuing property tax relief, but also the creation of the teacher retention allotment, which is what gave our veteran teachers 5 years or more a $5,000 state-funded raise, 2 years or more in the classroom a $2,500 raise, And most districts in the state advocated for just more into the basic allotment. And what that would have done is it would have widened the gap between us and Northside, whereas the retention allotment actually put us on a level playing field for what that law did for our teachers. So I mentioned that. I thought that was a really, really good thing. But I also mentioned that we appreciated that in HB2 was a clause saying TEA had the ability to make modifications if there were unintended consequences that financially hurt school districts. And Mr. Scott has informed us that we are one of 4 districts statewide that has been determined to have been hurt by the unintended financial consequences. In other words, we got less bang out of the buck in HB2, put $8.5 billion into public ed, and we didn't get it. You know, so one of Wes's reasons for going up to Austin with me that day was to corner the lead financial person from TEA, which he did quite effectively. He missed my testimony. That's okay, but he got some encouraging news that he's not ready to book yet regarding the unintended consequences. There were 7 other districts out of over 1,000 that were deemed to have been overpaid. Hence, they're getting less money in 25-26 and 26-27 than they thought. And that was problematic to some of the legislators. Now, some of those districts still got substantially more in 25-26 than they did in 24-25, whereas we did not. So I feel bad that maybe there's a number that's different than what they thought, but they ended up 25-26 in a lot better shape state aid-wise than we did. We were one of the 4 that had the unintended consequences. Now, if you talk to some public school advocates that have increasingly testified, they will tell you that they warned the legislators that this was going to happen, and they didn't want to hear it. And maybe that's true, and maybe that's not. I'm not going to weigh into that. But it definitely was troubling to several legislators on the Education Committee, and they were saying school districts need to be able to know what they can count on from a funding system. And I think it was pointed out in the session that TEA has been the one promoting a lot of the rules that add to the complexity of school finance. And maybe there should be less rules and strings and make it simpler for school districts to accurately anticipate. What Wes's philosophy has been here is do not assume you're going to get the money, which is, I think, a driving force, if I'm not mistaken, Wes, as to why we would adopt a budget with an X $1 million deficit. We end up with a nice surplus. Now, in those cases, it takes us a year to true up that to make modifications to our spending, whether it's positions or compensation or what have you. But I think it's the financially responsible way to do it, to not assume you're going to get money when maybe you will and maybe you won't. But I think it sends the message to TEA and the legislature, create a system where you know what you're going to get so these districts can budget. And I mean, I hope I answered your question.
No, you definitely did. And I want to say thank you for going to testify on behalf of school districts across the state, because again, you were the only one that was invited to testify. But to me, that really reinforces the volatility that you're talking about, Wes. And, fortunately, if you go back one slide now, we have adopted those deficit budgets. We're going to look at doing that again. But in the end, where we end up is positive because of the way that we're conservative in underestimating revenues and overestimating expenditures. So I'm comfortable with where we're going, but I think it's very important to talk about that volatility. So.
Yeah, and I'll back up what you say. I mean, we still have a very conservative approach in this budget that you're asking us to adopt regarding investment income. Because interest rates, in fact, I read today that European banks, central banks, are looking at raising their interest rates this year. I don't know that our new Fed chair is going to go that direction, but it may slow down I would imagine it's going to slow down the reduction of interest rates. So if interest rates remain about where they are today, we will exceed budgeted amount of investment income. We will exceed the amount of our entitlement revenue because you assume a conservative attendance rate, which we exceed. So I, like you, I'm comfortable in adopting this because I think we've got a significant amount of revenue that will happen, not to mention the impact of any unintended consequence revenue. So it's amazing when you talk to folks, and also we budget for X number of positions, and invariably at some point during the year, we're not going to have all those positions filled. So we will probably come in under what we budget for payroll. So and this is why we're not the only district that does the Stripping Springs, which is very similar to us. They're a property wealthy district. They're on the lower end of financing of districts in the state as we are, revenue per pupil. That's the metric they use, and every year, like us, they balance their budget. So it's sad that it has to be this complicated.
And then the last thing I'll say, Wes, I complimented you, but I think it's important to compliment Dr. Kraft and the rest of the executive leadership team. Again, we're gonna talk about a budget tonight, and we're gonna approve a budget. But this started with the first budget workshop in February. We meet in February, we meet in March, we meet in April, and May, and June. To go over different presentations, whether it's teaching and learning, whether it's HR, and all of those aspects. And so it culminates tonight, but it's not a 1 hour conversation. This is a very lengthy process that we go through, and it's a much improved process over, this is my 12th year now on the board. Where we started a budget process 12 years ago is night and day compared to what we do today. So I'm very appreciative.
Night and day. And when I said earlier, remember that 120,000, we've looked at different pay increases for our teachers. And I want to really also give kudos to Jill. Unfortunately, she's not here tonight. She's done remarkable work on our teacher, nurse, librarian pay scales over the last year and a half. If you were to look at our pay scales from 3, 4, 5 years ago, a decade ago, and compare it to other districts, there wasn't the same consistency. And you can debate the efficacy of steps all you want, but our step system didn't make sense like most districts did. And now we have a step system that we'll adopt that does make sense. And there are folks, the average may be 3.4%, but there are some years where veteran teachers weren't as competitive in some other districts. They were going to be at 4%, 4.2%. That's higher than any of our neighbors are talking about. Northside's talking about a 2. Other districts, in the same ballpark, less. Some are not giving out raises. So I think the approach we've used in being conservative on our estimates of revenue is now benefiting us because we have, based on state funding formulas, a lot less revenue per student than the average district in Texas, but we're going to give out one of the better raises in the area. And I feel good about that. We always wish we could do more, but this is what being fiscally responsible allows us to do. Like we mentioned earlier, we were talking about where we hired people from. We hired 11 of the 65 teachers we hired. They're coming from Northside. Northside pays more than us, okay? We've whittled the gap a little bit, and we do a little bit each year, but they still pay more than us. They're coming here. So,
You mind if I add some stuff? Can you go back to the slide about where the actual pay increases are? Because there's several points that I think are really big takeaways here. The 3.4 in the 2, Mr. Senna kind of touched on it. That's kind of really heard of from what you're looking at from districts and just everyone I've talked to. I have a lot of school board members on my phone. 1, 2, reduction in staff you're seeing. It's sad, but you know, the fact that we still have librarians on there is a real blessing and a testament to our district. Unfortunately, I think their value isn't being seen in other districts, and that's really sad, because I think that they make a huge impact to every student's life, and that's the quality of the student, and that's what they're going to be receiving from your leadership, Ms. Kraft, is huge. And the fact that we're giving this raise is, I know it's probably not what some people, there's going to be certain people who always want it to be a bigger number, and I totally understand that, but that's just not the realization of where school financing and public education is today. But pre-K, for full-time employees, I think that's going to be huge to retain and recruit talent to our district. I know for me personally, as y'all probably know, that would be a huge number for me, but I mean, we want to encourage families in Boerne, and I think there's probably, there's better ways, but that's one of the best ways we can probably encourage people to, one, make Boerne home if they're working in our district, but to two, honor them as far as they're working people with families. It's hard in this economy, and I think we're doing amazing work to try to make that a little bit easier. And I really do appreciate, because this wasn't me, this was a full community, and I really appreciate the staff and leadership in doing that. And whenever I see deficit budgets, I remember my very first one, if you can go back to, I think it's $5.4 million red number that I saw, I think it was on my second board meeting, and 5.2, sorry, my second board meeting, and I was sweating bullets, because those are big numbers and they're red, not green, and I run a business and I like green numbers. But talking to Rich for probably about, 2 months doing all the budget stuff, and I had my feeling of what I thought it was going to be, about 1.8, 1.6 in the red, and I think Rich was somewhere like 1.2, and then some things fell our way, and I'm starting to understand the way you finance some things, but the fact that was a $3.6 million in the green, that was a blessing, and I think that has a big, that was your call, and I really appreciate that. So normally, I'm not the person who ever wants to adopt a deficit or red number, but I feel extremely confident that's not what we're really actually doing tonight. That's what we're doing on paper. I understand that. I know some of the things that you're working on, I should say, to make sure that that's not the case, and I feel extremely confident that we'll be in a place a little bit more similar to last year than we were. In a negative way. Thank you so much.
And the other thing I'd like to point out, and I think Dr. Kraft, you'll probably communicate this, if you look at what a 10-year teacher made at the end of the 24-25 school year, so just 13 months ago, and you compare it to where they're going to be in this coming school year between the state-funded raise, which once again, we were one of the only districts in the state advocating for that particular allotment. Everyone else was advocating for basic allotment, which would have benefited their districts more than us. So between the state-funded raise, the Vader raise, the raise that we gave, and the raise that we're giving now, you're looking at 13-14% pay raises for a lot of our teachers from May of 25 to August of 26. That's pretty big.
And I want to commend the board for your attention to detail and capturing the story along the way. So when I first came on board in 2024, we had some work to do in compensation, and we've been taking small bites every opportunity that we have had. And we are putting together communication collateral that will roll tonight and tomorrow. That captures the intentional steps this board has taken to continue to invest in our employees. So it's something to be very proud of.
Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I echo all these sentiments. And Wes, can you confirm for the pre-K, can you go back to that slide? I think it's one back.
I can, and I want to thank Mr. Pies for bringing that up. I completely whiffed on that box.
It's a big one for sure. And I think it's great. We're honoring the profession and, taking care of our staff. This also includes, and correct me if I'm wrong, pre-K for our SROs.
It does.
So that's a huge win for our heroes on campus too. We appreciate them so much. This is a great way to honor what they do as well.
Yes.
And just to understand the number of that impact, that would save an employee $675 a month a month by the district covering the cost. And that will be part of our messaging rolling tonight. We have a press release going tomorrow morning, and Renee Munn will have Zoom set up for folks who want to learn more. So
I
again,
think
something to
that's
be very
gonna
proud of.
Help us attract employees, because, this applies now to teaching assistants and food service workers, and the ability to have no-cost pre-K. That could be the difference between applying here and not applying here.
And retaining our teachers, our staff.
Yeah.
Anyone else, team? Anything else to say?
It's not significant, but I'm excited for this opportunity to continue to invest in our teachers and our staff to let them know that we truly believe and appreciate all that they do for our students.
Very well said.
Like I said, I did want to just 10 seconds just say I really appreciate all the time and effort that you and Jill and Dr. Kraft and all y'all put into. I mean, we asked for a lot of numbers over the last 5 months and a lot of different scenarios, and it culminated in that 3.4 for 5 through 40 year teachers and TNLs, and then 2% for everybody else, and the no pre-K or no cost pre-K. Appreciate y'all's time, because that was a lot of work that we asked over the spring. So.
And that 120 grand that was saved on the FICA alternative, that allowed us to, because we were originally looking at some of the first drafts, we were looking at a lower raise for teachers, a lower raise for hourly employees. So that funded a lot of the increase for our hourly employees from 1% up to 2%. It's not huge, but when you look at some of the raises that our hourly folks have gotten over the last couple of years, it's very, very significant. I mean, I remember just 4 or 5 years ago, our teaching aides were making starting at $11.20 an hour. No wonder we had openings. Now they start at 16, and if you've got some experience, maybe 17. And when we did the Vader, Dr. Kraft, you showed the numbers of what it meant to a 7-year veteran of being a teaching aide. I think it was $1.63 an hour from the Vader. Well, gosh, that's $240 a month. That's a lot of money. I mean, with the inflation, it has, and now with the pre-K situation, that's even better. So we may not be done yet, but we're getting there.
All right, without further ado, if everyone is ready, let's do our public hearing for budget. It is now 7:54 p.m. At this time, we'll open the budget hearing and take comments from the audience. Does anyone have any comments regarding the budget hearing? Okay. All right, it is now 7:55 p.m. At this time, we will close the public hearing. Thank you, Wes. All right. Final action item tonight on our agenda, which we're all anticipating, is consider budget adoption 2026 and 2027. Wes, can you lead the way?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The proposed budget in the state prescribed format is available on our website to see. The general operating fund is proposed with estimated revenues of $120.9 million. Let me get this to an appropriate space here. All right. And appropriations of $123,300,889, which is an increase of 3.76% and 5.8% from the previous year's adopted budget. The primary source is local tax revenue, consisting of 66.66% of total revenues. The Child Nutrition Fund is proposed with estimated revenue and appropriations of $4.5 million, which is an increase of 4.65% from the previous year's adopted budget. The Child Nutrition's primary resource is local revenue participation in the Child Nutrition Program. The Child Nutrition Fund is presented as a balanced budget. The Debt Service Fund is proposed with estimated revenue and appropriations of $40,545,000, which is an increase of 9.15% from the prior year adopted budget. The debt service fund's primary resources is local tax revenue, consisting of 91.2% of the total resources. The board shall adopt a that is the budget as presented. I will answer any additional questions and turn this back over to Madam President.
I know we've had great discussion. Is there anything else, team? All right, well, I'm requesting a motion to approve the 2026-2027 budget.
Madam President, I move that the board approves the proposed 2026-27 budget for general fund, debt service fund, and nutrition fund.
I second.
Oh, wait. We got a competition here. So we have a motion by Rich Senna, and I believe that Dallas, I hear a second by Dallas Pipes.
All right, we're going second with Dallas Pipe.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Madam President, we miss Christy tonight.
Yes.
She's at college with her daughter, with McKinley, and want to let everyone know that she was very excited about, wish she could be here to vote for the proposed budget. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, she's certainly a part of our team of 8. We miss her tonight. It's exciting. So the last thing on our agenda prior to adjournment, we're going to talk about future business. So I'll kind of summarize that for us. For August 17th meeting, we'll discuss annual investment policy review, resolution for investment officers, investment broker-dealer resolution, quarterly investment report, SHAC committee approval, adjunct facility agreements, faculty agreements, employee appraisal calendar, and list of certified TESS appraisers for 2026-2027, JJAEP memorandum of understanding, TASB policy update 127 second reading. And then it is now,
Oh, in addition to anything that we postponed off this agenda will be held in the August 17th meeting.
yeah, thank you so much. That is correct. Anything that we moved from the agenda would be discussed in August. Thank you for clarifying that for us. So it is now 7:59 p.m. and at this time I request a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
All right, we have a motion by Garrett Wilson. We have a second by Dallas Pipes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approve, same sign. All opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank y'all so much. What a wonderful night. Thank y'all for attending.